the silence echoes linger, bearing witness to unseen scars.
Most people hear the word trauma and picture war zones, violent assaults, or catastrophic accidents. And yes, those are traumatic events. But here's the twist. Trauma is not the event itself. It's what happens inside you when your brain can't properly process and file that experience away.
Britt Frank, author of The Science of Stuck, puts it beautifully. Trauma is not what happens to us, but what we hold inside in the absence of an empathic witness. Think of your brain like a digestive system for experiences. When something happens, your brain is supposed to break it down, make sense of it, and store it in memory. But if the event is too overwhelming, or if you don't have a safe, supportive person to help you process it, the experience just sits there, undigested. And like bad sushi, it starts to cause problems later. Symptoms like anxiety, fatigue, irritability, or brain fog may be signs of this indigestion. This is why two people can go through the same event, say, a car accident, and one seems to bounce back while the other struggles with nightmares, anxiety, or unexplained physical symptoms. The difference? One brain digested the event, the other didn't. There are traumatic events, and then there are trauma-inducing events. Traumatic-inducing events are anything that can overwhelm your brain, like moving to a new city, getting married, giving birth, undergoing surgery, or starting a new job. It's not about the event. It's about whether your brain can handle it at that moment. As psychiatrist Bessel van der Kolk writes in The Body Keeps the Score, trauma results from an event that overwhelms the central nervous system, altering the way we process and recall memories. When you face an overwhelming event, your amygdala, which is the brain's smoke alarm, can go into overdrive. This floods your body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Normally, your prefrontal cortex, which is the rational decision maker, steps in to calm things down. But in trauma, the thinking brain goes offline. The memory can get stuck in the amygdala without being properly integrated into your life story. Neuroimaging studies show that in people with PTSD, parts of the brain involved in processing and sequencing memories, like the hippocampus, are less active during recall. In other words, the memory is still raw data. Your body reacts as if it's happening now, even if it's years later. But living with unprocessed data can lead to triggers.
Think of your brain as a high-tech smoke alarm. Its job is to keep you safe by detecting danger before it happens. But if you've been through trauma, whether it's a big, obvious one like an accident or a quieter one like years of emotional neglect, your alarm system can become overly sensitive. A trauma trigger is anything: an image, a sound, a smell, a tone of voice, even a thought that reminds your brain, often unconsciously, of a past overwhelming experience. When that happens, your nervous system reacts as if the past danger is happening right now. Since you haven't processed the information, you are still dealing with the stimuli and being reactive to it. It doesn't matter if the trigger seems harmless to someone else. To your brain, it's the match that lights the fire. When you experience trauma, your amygdala, which is the emotional alarm system, stores sensory and emotional details of the event, without necessarily linking them to time and place. This is why the smell of a certain perfume can suddenly make you anxious without you knowing why. Neuroimaging studies, like those published in Biological Psychiatry and the American Journal of Psychiatry, show that in PTSD, the amygdala is hyperactive while the hippocampus, which tells your brain this happened in the past, is underactive. The result? Your body responds as if the threat is current, not historical. Bessel van der Kolk, in The Body Keeps the Score, puts it simply: The past is not the past in the traumatized brain. It's an ever-present current. Trauma disrupts your brain's natural processing abilities, making it hard to just move on or leave the past behind. It can cause ongoing emotional dysregulation and heightened responses to stress. Let's say you were in a bad car accident years ago. Now, every time you hear screeching brakes, you tense up, your heart races, and your breathing speeds up, even if you're safely on the sidewalk. That's a trigger. Triggers can be external, like places, sounds, smells, people, or situations. For example, the hallway where you were bullied in school. The very sight of it can pull the trigger. Then there are internal triggers, like thoughts, emotions, physical sensations. For example, a racing heart from exercise can trigger anxiety if it feels like panic from the past. These triggers matter because each trigger has a trauma response. When you're triggered, your brain thinks there's an urgent need to act. As Britt Frank explains in The Science of Stuck, sometimes it floods you with get-up-and-go juice. Stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. You might feel panic, anxiety, restlessness, or an inability to focus. And this is the fight-or-flight system going online. Other times, it pulls the emergency brake, slowing you down to conserve energy. You might feel depressed, fatigued, spacey, or stuck in procrastination. And this is the freeze or shutdown response of your brain. What's really going on in trauma response is that your brain is reacting to its perception of danger, not necessarily reality. The suffering is imaginative, but it feels real.
Therefore, it's important to understand and identify triggers before the alarm goes off. Pay attention to your body. Watch for sudden change like tight chest, rapid heartbeat, nausea, or shaky hands. Take note of the context, where it happened, with whom it happened. What words and what stimuli triggered your memory? What are the unresolved and unsettled emotions within you that screams out? Look for patterns of repetition. Start journaling what you feel frequently. Write it down without trying to explain it away. Your unconscious mind stores connections that aren't always logical, but are emotionally real. Once you spot a trigger, you can work with it, instead of being blindsided. Here is what you can do. First of all, name it to tame it. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research shows that labeling what's happening, for example, I'm feeling anxious because this reminds me of, helps move the experience from the reactive amygdala into the reflective prefrontal cortex. Label it, and don't take the identity to affirm it. Identity is saying that I am an anxious person. Labeling is knowing what it is. Secondly, ground yourself in the present. Try the 5-4-3-2-1 method. Name 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch, 3 you can hear, 2 you can smell, 1 you can taste. This is tricking your mind to come to the present moment and training yourself for mindfulness and calm. This tells your nervous system, I'm here now, I'm safe. This helps you interrupt the pattern. Thirdly, engage in regulating practices like breathing. Try breathing slowly with deep exhalations to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Move your body and interrupt your pattern with some sensory comforts to cool down like warm tea, calming aroma, etc. Awareness is the key to first dealing with triggers. Therefore, build a trigger map. This is a personal chart of known triggers and strategies for each. For example, the trigger could be crowded elevators, and your plan should be to stand near the door, focus on slow breathing, remind myself of the exit plan. Make a list of things that triggers you and be prepared to handle those situations with awareness. And finally, seek an empathic witness, someone like a therapist, trusted friend, or support group that helps your brain digest the undigested memory. Peter Levine, author of Waking the Tiger, emphasizes that co-regulation, calming down in the presence of another regulated nervous system, is a key ingredient in trauma recovery.
You don't have to get over it to heal yourself. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's about living well despite it. True recovery doesn't mean erasing memories and scars or suppressing feelings. It means the scars can no longer control your life. Bessel van der Kolk in The Body Keeps the Score says, "Healing from trauma means owning your story and reclaiming your body." Trauma responses are habitual, and it is a means of how your brain and body respond to stress. But neuroplasticity can rewire those patterns. There are many ways to achieve this. 1. Your body is your first therapist. Trauma isn't just in your head, it's stored in your nervous system. That's why purely thinking your way out of trauma often doesn't work. Regulating the nervous system is the first step. When you are constantly triggered, your sympathetic nervous system becomes overactive, activating the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. To restore balance, you need to switch from dysregulation to calm by engaging your parasympathetic nervous system. This can be done through adequate rest and practices that promote relaxation, which in turn activate the vagus nerve, the key regulator of the body's safe versus danger settings. Instead of diving straight into painful memories, somatic work teaches you to first calm or downshift your nervous system. You move from a state of high activation, such as panic or hyperarousal, into safety through simple, body-based exercises. The process involves gently tuning into subtle bodily sensations, like tightness, heaviness, or tingling, and allowing those sensations to shift or release. This mindful curiosity creates space for the body to process and let go of held trauma. There are practical ways to do this, such as breathing exercises and walking in nature, also known as forest bathing. Gentle yoga or tai chi, warm baths, aromatherapy, soothing music, or relaxing showers can also help. Humming or singing can stimulate the vagus nerve. These practices send a signal to your body, "We're safe now," which allows your brain to begin processing old experiences without going into panic mode. 2. Small is big. A lot of people think they need to go deep into their trauma right away in order to heal. But as trauma therapist Peter Levine, author of Waking the Tiger, teaches, going too deep too soon can actually re-traumatize you. In therapeutic circles, this is all about pacing your healing. If you go too deep too fast, it's easy to become overwhelmed. Think of it like learning to swim. You begin in shallow water with support and gradually build confidence before venturing deeper. Instead, try the science of titration, taking small, manageable doses of emotional processing, which helps your nervous system adapt without becoming overloaded. 3. Safety first, insight second. Many people want to understand why something happened before they can feel better. This often leads to constant overthinking. Why did this happen to me? Which can spiral into blame and victimhood, triggering trauma responses. But the brain works in reverse when it comes to trauma. You must first create a sense of safety, physically, emotionally, and relationally, before your mind will open to insight and change. This is why EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, somatic experiencing, and other trauma therapies begin by teaching grounding skills before addressing the core memory.
4. You don't have to heal alone. Trauma often happens in isolation. It's what Britt Frank, author of The Science of Stuck, calls the absence of an empathic witness. Healing, therefore, happens in connection. Humans are wired for co-regulation. In infancy, we literally borrow our caregiver's nervous system to calm down, and that doesn't stop in adulthood. Having an empathic witness, someone who hears your story without judgment, helps your brain digest and integrate the experience. Psychologist Daniel Siegel, author of The Whole Brain Child, calls this "name it to tame it." Putting the story into words helps move it from the reactive emotional brain into the reflective thinking brain. Without that witness, the experience often remains stuck, looping in your nervous system. Studies in psychological science have found that simply holding a trusted person's hand during stress reduces activation in the brain's threat centers. Your nervous system quite literally borrows their calm. This is why group therapy, support groups, and safe friendships are powerful tools in recovery. They restore the co-regulation our brains crave. However, many people withdraw from sharing their story with a trusted counselor or friend because of shame. Shame is one of the biggest impediments to healing, often keeping individuals trapped in silence and isolation. Overcoming this emotional weight is a crucial step toward trauma recovery. On the other end of the spectrum, some people keep talking about their trauma over and over again, essentially reliving their experiences. There is a huge difference between relieving trauma and reliving it. Reliving trauma without processing it can strengthen maladaptive neural wiring and weaken your parasympathetic nervous system. This is a powerful reminder that although talking through trauma can feel validating, it seldom addresses the deep-rooted impact carried in your body and nervous system. Words can revisit the pain, but they often don't transform it.
5. Your story needs to be told, but not all at once. There's a therapeutic term called narrative integration. It means slowly building a coherent story of your life that includes the trauma without letting it define you. James Pennebaker's research on expressive writing found that writing about difficult experiences for just 15 to 20 minutes a day can improve immune function, mood, and overall well-being. The key is pacing. A flood of raw details can overwhelm you, but gentle storytelling allows you to reclaim authorship over your life. Writing helps convert chaotic or suppressed emotions into structured narrative. It boosts immune response, emotional clarity, and self-awareness, especially for those with unresolved trauma. Trauma often lives in the shadows, partially remembered, fragmented, sensory-rich. Naming it, whether through words, art, theater, movement, drawing, or voice, brings it into your awareness, giving you the power to reshape it. 6. Your triggers are maps. Instead of seeing triggers as setbacks, think of them as signposts pointing toward unresolved wounds. Each time you're triggered, you're given a chance to practice regulation and rewire the response. The key lies in developing emotional intelligence, which is becoming self-aware of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and understanding how your reactions affects others. With emotional regulation, you catch yourself before reacting impulsively, choosing instead to respond thoughtfully. Self-critical and distorted beliefs are replaced with accurate self-awareness. For example, if loud voices trigger you because of a violent household, noticing your breath quicken is the first step. Then, practicing grounding like the 5-4-3-2-1 sensory technique can rewire your brain to associate loudness with safety rather than danger. 7. The body keeps the score, but it also keeps the cure. There are many body-based therapies you can choose from, such as Somatic Experiencing, Sensorimotor Psychotherapy, and Trauma-Sensitive Yoga. These mind-body practices integrate breathing, awareness, and gentle movement to help regulate nervous system arousal. A simple framework for coping and healing comes from Bruce Perry's Neurosequential model of therapeutics, the Regulate, Relate, and Reason model. Regulate by calming the body first through breathing, grounding, or movement. Relate by connecting with friends, therapists, or support groups to process your trauma. Reason by exploring the story and meaning once you feel calm and supported. Self-compassion plays an important role here. Showing compassion toward yourself creates the safety your nervous system needs to begin the work of healing.
Coping with trauma isn't about being strong or moving on. It's about learning to work with your body and brain, building safety, telling your story in a way that empowers you, and doing it in connection with others. Because trauma may have happened in isolation, but healing rarely does.